Today we're going to introduce you to the second chapter of this guidebook, Economic Development, through a short overview of the chapter contents. And then we're going to turn to local and regional community members to share their stories of economic development. And now I'd like to introduce you to my colleague, Kate Searles, who's our Policy Research Director, to tell you a little bit about what's in the Economic Development chapter. And
So we basically talk about workforce development and business development. And we have a crisis on both ends. We have a skilled labor shortage that is going to intensify, just given the basic demographics of our state. Wages are not growing in alignment with that contraction in the labor market. We're really concerned about the decline in small businesses. We are losing small banks across the state in a rapid rate. Small banks are where small business people go for credit. I will say that the number one group forming new small businesses are people of color. Regions and communities are really interested in creating spaces like what we're in, Sprout. And it really works for economic development. It works not only to bring in outside traffic, but it works to attract new residents.
I'm going to give you the 101 history of Sprout. Sprout was founded on the principle that agriculture is an economic engine in central Minnesota. It provides services to the community that help address the gaps in food insecurity, access to food, affordability, availability, with a specific goal and focus of supporting our small family farmers and providing equitable markets for every grower to participate in the economic development component of local foods. And a lot of our small family farmers are Latino, Amish, tribal, and farms operated primarily by women. Sprout, as I said, is a food hub, and we are dedicated to that mission and have developed this facility to help provide the transportation, infrastructure, and logistics necessary to move over 100,000 pounds of food from about 80 small family farmers in the last 5 years. That's probably almost $750,000 to those growers. The other component is this marketplace. The core component of this was to create a marketplace that was open in the wintertime when summer farmers markets are not available, and when people are looking for that destination, a place to go, spend time with their friends and family, and get out of the house, even if it's wintertime. What we identified was that we didn't have value-added kitchens in our area. We didn't have kitchens that we could rent out to growers that want to continue to improve their bottom line by doing value-added production. We also use our kitchens to do cooking demonstrations, so we've had cooking classes and lots of community members show up for those. How to prepare salsa, how to safely prepare sauerkraut, because people really want to know how to use local foods and get back to the basics. Placemaking is a very creative way to develop physical spaces, create local economies, where that local wealth sticks and that individual livelihoods are enhanced by the development of those properties. When we were developing this facility, we engaged artists from the very beginning, and in this space that had absolutely nothing in it, had about 30 local residents and artists help us design this space before we put one penny into its development. So we try to do some really creative things in this space as well.
The Five Kings Arts Council is really kind of the go-to place for community development with a focus on the arts. So we specialize in working with artists, small rural communities, schools, to help artists find the resources they need to connect and to learn. We cover the same counties that Region 5 does, Castro, Wayne, Todd, Morrison, Waukegan counties. There's lots of impressive numbers. Arts and cultural organizations are contributing over $4.6 million to our local economy each year. Artists and creative workers in our 5 counties are impacting $8 million in impact for our counties. Small arts organizations to communities that want to do arts projects, schools, we work a lot with schools to bring artists into the schools, and also in individual artists. Last year we gave away nearly $400,000 in direct investments back into the 5 counties, so we're very proud of that. But more importantly, one of our primary goals is to bring artists essentially to the table and to the forefront of the conversation that we're having. So some examples, we do offer what's called Arts-Based Community Development Grant. The program is specifically designed to foster partnerships between arts and non-arts entities and strengthen the role of the arts and community development, requiring partners to identify and work directly with artists. There's an organization called Wellness in the Woods, which is a mental health, peer-run mental health service organization. The project was to a couple of theater artists that specialize in community engagement. Went out and talked to folks, gathered stories, people to participate. Actually wrote a screenplay, or actually a play, put on the production, and it was kind of a traveling show to 4 different venues in those same communities. It really strikes home, and not only themselves as a participant, but people in the audience. And there was a lot of survivors of either mental health crisis or spouses that have lost their loved ones due to depression. It's kind of the other side of the story, which is a real positive engagement of the community. It's called Picture Us Beautiful. There's a group of citizens that is working with a group of artists as well to really get ahead of the ball, to design some green space, some public space that is more aesthetic than just what MnDOT would do. The A La Carte project, I know it was mentioned a little bit earlier before, the artist engagement into the communities, bringing the art right to the communities that they serve, and coupled with mobile markets, which is really an idea. So.
Perhaps childcare doesn't sound like economic development, but about 2 years ago, we really started to open our eyes on the impact of lack of access to quality, affordable childcare in terms of workforce engagement. In central Minnesota, and I define that as our 14 counties, it's estimated that there are 17,000 people that are seeking childcare and can't find an affordable slot. And when all of our counties right now have between 2 and 4% unemployment, we can't afford to have that many people staying home. If that's their choice, bless them, that's fine. Totally supportive, but a lot of them wish they could work and just can't find the opportunity. Is John Rodemacher here? John is exactly the kind of young professional leader all of us want to be attracted to our community. John is kind of my poster child for telling this story. He's the city administrator for Little Falls. And when he was hired here, he said, great, I'll be there, and my family will follow as soon as we find childcare. 3 months later, they were still on waiting lists, and he was questioning whether he'd made the right choice. We can't afford to let that be the barrier. Providers are not getting rich. They're barely holding it together. Yet parents are really struggling to figure out how to pay for childcare. It is not cheap. The good news is we have been very fortunate this year to get 2 different grants, one from the Department of Human Services and one from the Department of Employment and Economic Development. And indeed, Little Falls, all of Morrison County, and Long Prairie, Staples Motley, Clarissa, and all of Todd County are 2 of the communities that have applied and were selected to take advantage of that. And so just subsidizing care in the short term is a Band-Aid that won't solve anything. We need to look at alternative business models. We need to attract new people to the field. With some restrictions, I'm grinning at Cheryl, hopefully we'll offer some forgivable loans for folks who can add slots and expand their business. And if businesses can't find the workers they need, they will leave. But one of the things that we have learned in this is one size doesn't fit all. Part of the reason we're not giving a prescriptive plan to each community, that the community needs to develop that plan, is it will reflect what their needs and economies and of interested folks to enter the field. In St. Cloud, where I do work, we've had several private sector leaders come in and say, we'll give you the first floor, we'll pay the utilities if you'll open a child care center there. What strategy would be greater at worker retention and loyalty?
And I have the privilege of running a small business based here in our region. It's called the Renewable Energy Alliance, or REAL. We design and build local energy systems for the community. We have recently deployed a multitude of solar energy systems that's generating energy locally and again reducing the operating costs of our schools. Solar energy functions very well in Minnesota, and here's a fun fact. Minneapolis and Houston have the exact same solar resource. Clean energy and solar energy is very much of an economic engine. Right now, the clean energy industry in Minnesota is generating jobs 10 times faster than the background labor market. We are very proud in our region, having started in 2000, to be creating quality jobs, high-paying jobs for our community. We're committed to building an inclusive solar workforce, so we do that as part of our mission. We've had the good fortune of working very closely with the First Nations in our region, and we've created a handful of solar jobs for band members of the First Nations in our region. Our organization is committed to reducing the energy burden for low-income Minnesotans. And energy poverty affects at least 1 in 8 of us here today. It's a serious challenge for central Minnesota, for Todd County, for Morrison County. We deliver solar energy systems directly to low-income families. What we're suggesting is rather than just paying low-income families' energy bills, we can permanently empower our low-income neighbors with clean energy. This summer, my colleagues and I are going to be building a system right here in Little Falls in partnership with Tri-County Community Action Council, specifically for low-income disabled veterans. And we want everyone to understand that clean energy is an economic engine. It's developing a lot of jobs. It's creating a lot of growth in our neighborhoods.
So regional development commissions were created by the state of Minnesota to address regional critical issues. We create a plan every year that talks about what does this region need to focus on in terms of economic development. So we do outreach through all of our planning processes. What's driven that is our work plan that says we right now under community development focus on access to affordable broadband in rural places. We focus on local foods. We focus on renewable energy. Do a lot with the county engineers and with other folks in the region that represent all 5 modes of transportation. Every year we do something by way of either trail, rail, and other works. We do have a lending arm of the organization that does loans to businesses, and we do probably got about $11 million in our portfolio right now. And then we get this other bucket that gets everything else that has regional relevancy. What should we be doing? And we asked the region, and they said, figure out how when millennials come to this community, or veterans come to this community, or disabled people come to this community and they get a job, how we keep them in our communities. Private sector said, we can't find workers. We don't have a work base. We will not expand. We will not stay if we do not have a qualified workforce. How do we make them feel welcoming so that they want to keep their job and be part of our community and part of our civic processes?
And so as we started working with our partners, we discovered that they were already really working quite actively with the employers, because the employers were the first, I think, to kind of feel this workforce shortage. We thought, well, who else can we be working with to help make our communities more welcoming? Local units of government, nonprofit boards, and also the public sector could maybe use some ideas as well to how they can retain and attract the workforce. Being a part of the community is such a big part of why people stay in a region. How are we bridging those differences so that we can better work together? So we've gone out to the community now and worked with 10 different organizations and local units of government. And now we're working on phase 2, where we're going to be working more closely with 6 different communities in the region and really looking at what are we doing, taking a deep look at our region and taking a deep look at our communities and thinking, what can we do to be more welcoming? Not to say that we're not welcoming now, but there are always improvements in people that we might not be paying attention to that could use some community development.
That concludes our presentations from folks around the region. Obviously, all of the work that's going on here in the region and in the localities will continue. We want to help promote all of the good works that are happening here and share the stories across the state. And so we take it upon ourselves as network builders, if you will, to ensure that all of us get a chance to learn from all of us. And also we understand that we need everybody to participate to keep our economy strong and our community is vital, across rural-urban connections in particular, to inspire other good works across the state.